Heartland Flags and Gifts presents Legends and Listeners with Scott Dochterman and Chad Leistikow. Fly 'em high and fly 'em proud. Find your flag at heartlandflags.com. Breaking down the Big Ten from the Channel Seed Studios, this is Iowa Everywhere.
Hey there, Hawkeye fans, Big Ten fans, and Iowans everywhere. We are once again delighted that you have chosen us for episode 6 of Legends and Listeners here on the Iowa Everywhere Network. I'm your host, Chad Leistikow, a sports columnist for the Des Moines Register, coming to you live from the Channel Seed Studios. You notice I did the Brett and Rusbricker live. It's hate week again, Scott. Iowa at Penn State on Saturday from Beaver Stadium. The Hawkeyes are 3-0, but now go into the whiteout hornet's nest amidst 106,000 plus rabid fans who want nothing more from the first half of their season in 2023 to get revenge on the team that spoiled their 2021 season in a very painful way. Scott Dochterman of The Athletic, my colleague, competitor, friend, do you think the Hawkeyes are fully aware of the pure vitriol they're about to face in Happy Valley?
No, I don't think so. I don't think people here understand just how much that people hate them there. And it's because of 2 years ago, and it was injury gate or whatever it was they want to call it. And if you flip it around, and I'm not talking about scuba or turtle, that's another.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, that could be. You could be angry there, but they had some serious injuries that day. And if you think about, I'm not trying to call out Iowa fans by any stretch, but if you were to think about something like Luke Lachey would have went down, like PJ Mustipher did, he was gone for the season in that game for Penn State, a very valuable defensive tackle, and getting booed, that would chap everybody's, here. And I think that's what you're facing this week. And so, yes, the mood, the tenor among the fan base there and the players to some extent too, and I'm sure coaching staff, is remember that moment. That's something that's been brought up routinely. And then this week, I can't tell you how many mutes I've had to add just because of that. So it's going to be feisty, and it's going to be awesome though, because that environment's as good as it gets in college football.
Yeah, it's the Seven Nation Army game. It's also CBS Sports theme music return. It's there's a lot of musical numbers we could associate with this game, but I don't know. I know that there were some real injuries, but there definitely were some suspicious activities out there, I would say. So I feel like, what James Franklin did a couple days after that game last year. Now, Kirk Ferentz definitely stoked it by saying they smelled a rat. But Franklin was out there saying, itemizing all the real injuries, but they're, we wouldn't do that because they're not a tempo team. But, if you know anything about what Iowa does, is that they kind of wait in the weeds the whole time. And then when they get an opening, they pounce. And so I feel like that there was some legitimacy to the booing, I think, the guys that would come back in the next play. Maybe it was cramps, whatever. But, there's people on that staff that used to work for James Franklin. I think there's I think there's some reality underneath that. And I think that's part of the whole deal. And I mean, if there's a Luke Lachey type of injury out there on Saturday, like that could get ugly from their fans. So it is going to be interesting. First Hawkeye that gets hurt is I feel bad for.
Right. And I hope it's just a walk it off type of injury. And that's the unfortunate part about it, because I agree with you. In that game, there were tempo injuries. When somebody would, Iowa, I think I remember one, I think it was Tyler Goodson, busted off like a 20-yard run, and then there'd be somebody laying down, and I think it was LeVar Woods who even hit the turf, and that's really unfortunate. And it all really kind of stems back from Jarrell Worthy and Michigan State in 2011 when Iowa did go hurry up, and D'Antonio didn't hide it that. Well, that's what we're gonna do, And
Kirk Ferentz said, "I've seen it twice in my 23 years here. That one and this one."
exactly. And they get them back to back, oddly enough. But
that's right. Green
but
Darth Vader, baby.
Yeah, Green Darth Vader returns, and so we can talk about that next week, I suppose. But this one, either way, whether you believe, I think both. I think that there were legitimate injuries, and that's the unfortunate part because it makes Iowa fans look bad, and they're not bad fans. But then there were a few that were like, come on, man. And you hate to say it's like, don't boo unless you know that it doesn't look like a real injury. But nevertheless, we're here, and everybody's got to be cognizant of what's going to happen Saturday night.
Legends and Listeners is brought to you every Thursday by Heartland Flags and Gifts, which provides free shipping anywhere in the U.S. and always coming up with new products. Has you covered with nearly every team, every sport, every flag. A road game for Iowa this week, but back-to-back home games coming up, including a night game, we heard, 6:30 next weekend against Michigan State at Kinnick. So it's a good time to load up on your Hawkeye goodies. Visit our friends online at heartlandflags.com or in-store at 3719 Southwest 9th Street in Des Moines, which is my neck of the woods. Scott, let's continue this theme about the atmosphere that I was going into, the whiteout atmosphere, and maybe an early what we're working on discussion. This morning I posted like a 2,500 word piece on the 2009 game at Penn State, which I feel like it was so much fun to look back at that game. Talked to three of the prime players in that game, including Rick Stanzi, Broderick Bands, Pat Anger. And this was the last time that Iowa was in a whiteout atmosphere. And I feel like, Scott, the similarities are incredibly striking. I mean, Penn State was number 5 then. They're number 7 now. Complete revenge game. I mean, that was the intro on ABC with Musburger and Herbstreit that night. It was like, they want revenge for that 2008 loss. Hawkeyes were heavy underdogs. It was week 4. There was rain in the forecast. It rained. Iowa was kind of an unflashy 3-0. Penn State was this, a team that, hey, last year the national title hopes were ruined. This year is the year. I feel like that game, more than any, may be the epitome of the best parts of the Kirk Ferentz era. I know you're working on something kind of similar. So what stands out from that game and how Iowa can take it to heart in this game?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same story, Chad. I'm just going to publish it tomorrow. So. But such is life and our profession. I
feel like it's a credit to both of us. We both have the same similar idea. So
it's I should have done it on Thursday now. But either way, it's the same theme here, and that is that all of the parallels are there and they're striking. And you have an angry fan base bent on revenge. And 2 years ago, now the difference is, of course, 2 years ago, Penn State kind of flopped the rest of the season. They lost a lot of games. And the one in 2008 was a really good, legitimate team that Iowa rallied from 9 down in the fourth quarter to beat on a last-second field goal. And they were 9-0, and they're 3rd in the country and had a legitimate chance. I mean, if they would have ran the table, they would have gotten the playoff or the BCS title game back then.
Right.
But then you look at the strength of Iowa right now, the game, what all was entailed, and kind of an embattled quarterback. You got backup running backs. Jewel Hampton was going to be the guy going into the season, and he got hurt. And Adam Robinson is the spitting image to me of LaShawn Williams.
Yeah,
a line that was kind of hit and miss, and Brian Bulaga didn't play in that game. Iowa had 17 players on their roster, or 15 that played in the game, and then 2 others that were really impactful that didn't play. That were drafted, and I think Penn State had 15. So it was just the confluence of events are real striking to hear. It's just, does Iowa have the team? Does Iowa have the defense? And how does Penn State match up to what it was then? I would say this might be a better Penn State team. I think they were good. They were 11-2. I think their defense is a little better now than what it was that year. But Darryl Clark was more proven than what Drew Aller is. And I think Drew Aller's, upper echelon talent is way beyond Darryl Clark. So it's really fascinating. And I think it speaks to what this situation could end up being.
Well, for me it got my juices flowing to kind of write that piece and talk to these guys and kind of understand what they were thinking on the sidelines. And I feel like I was just thinking about this a few minutes ago, like uh, this box score, like when they read Kirk Ferentz's eulogy, 30 years from now or whenever it is, this box score needs to like be slipped inside his casket or whatever. I know that's a little bit morbid, but it was like the Ferentz win. You get hit in the mouth early. I mean, first play of the game, 79 yards. Next drive, Penn State 20-play drive. We talked about the Michigan State drive, in 2015. This was similar, but Iowa holds them to a field goal. It's 10-0. Basically, the first quarter is over, and you've barely had the ball, and they just keep grinding. They keep grinding, and I feel like everybody remembers the Claiborne block punt. I have a whole section on that in my article, and it's pretty cool to get all the perspectives of that. But the box score in the fourth quarter is like so Ferentz. Outscore Penn State 16-0 with a special teams touchdown, create 3 turnovers in addition to that, throw no passes at all, and win the game 21-10, tack on a field goal late. Hey, they were going for some points back then too. Total classic Ferentz game. I think Ricky Stanzi said it best. It was classic Iowa football: defense, special teams, and running the football.
Yeah, exactly. And Stanzi was back then. He was very entertaining to watch, no question. And in some of these games, I mean, he was like 12-26 that day. So it wasn't a Stanzi classic by any stretch. It was just. But what I saw, especially when Broderick Benz forced that fumble in the end zone that was recovered for a safety, that you just saw the body blows starting to accumulate in this game. And I kind of equivalent everything to a boxing match, because that's an easy transition, sport wise. And I always looked at in this series, Penn State's like Apollo Creed, Iowa's like Rocky Balboa. And just the body blows, and the Iowa is the unpolished fighter that just scraps and is physical, and you go all the way to the end. And Apollo Creed is this amazing athlete who can win. So, and then it just styles make fights. And I think in this case, when you saw the defensive line just absolutely took over this game, this was when that line went from being very, very good to elite, one of the best in the country, and dominated that game. And then Pat Anger has 14 tackles and an interception and a forced fumble of Evan Royster, who was a good running back, and AJ Eads, and just on and on and on and on. And I really think that, it was definitely, to me, and ultimately the highest ranked team in Iowa for Ferentz, that it was this most symbolic game of that Ferentz 2.0 and of that season.
Yeah, some awesome quotes. I mean, Ben saying, they were wearing down. Ricky Stanzi saying, just, after that block punt, it was just in your veins, that atmosphere, that it was time to twist the knife the other way. And of course, Anger with some great colorful quotes in there too. I won't spoil it all, but I don't know. It frames my perspective. I remember where I was when I was out in Virginia at that time, working for USA Today, and I remember vividly that moment. I know a lot of Hawkeye fans have ever replied to this story, saying they remember exactly where they were at that moment. People in the stands just remembering the thud and the silence and the ooh, when that punt gets blocked. And as Stanzi said, like, it was such like a clean punt pickup too. Like, usually when a punt's blocked, it's like, oh, everybody's scrambling. Oh, I can't get it. Hot potato. It's like he scooped that MFer up and he took it to the house, baby.
It was an amazing bounce in a rain-drenched climate to have it kind of come up. And, he's an awesome athlete. So, I mean, it just kind of, and then he took it to the house, Claiborne. But just to see it all unfold. And then, again, boxing analogy, and I'm going back to this, but that was a shot that sent him to the canvas. And it's like, okay, Iowa is in control. And even though I think it was like the next kickoff, they took it to midfield and there was a penalty, and then Royster runs the ball, and then Pat knocks the ball out, and then they just smothered them. And then, the Adam Robinson run at the end for the touchdown that put them up 18-10 was physical Iowa football. That was just
Yeah.
just driving on them. And then, they kicked the field goal because they wanted to go up 2 scores. They needed to. You never know what could happen there. But really the epitome of, and that launched Iowa in that season.
Yeah, it was a special season.
Yeah.
Without that win, we're not talking about that season.
And you look at the kind of going up to that game, you had that UNI crazy game to the season opener, and they were, trending, but they were a really good team, for a while there, and kind of like this one in some ways. I mean, they're 8-9 over their last 9 games. Nobody would think that because all the talk's been about offense, but they've lost 1 game by 1 touchdown. They've given up 10 touchdowns, Chad, in 9 games.
That was an amazing stat you tweeted out. I hadn't thought about that. That's pretty impressive. And the touchdowns that they have given up have been junk time or big plays.
Yeah. I mean, there's only been 4 earned touchdowns. I mean, maybe you could say 5 counting Iowa State's drive that was in the last 3 minutes a couple weeks ago. But, and then the team last year, or that year, I guess it was, they were they'd won 7 straight, I think, going into that game, because they won the last, or maybe it was 8. They won 4 in a row to end the 08 season, and then they won their first 3 to start that season, and then they ended up winning, I think, 12. It was 12 or 13 in a row.
Got to 13,
yeah. So really an impressive run for that program, and I think so the parallels to this game and that game are just remarkable.
It is. And I know we're talking about the past a lot, but it does frame this game for me. I mean, you got the same coach, same mentality, all that stuff. And you kind of brought up Rick Stanzi. And I feel like, Iowa has this is our second topic before we get to our main topic, but Iowa has a quarterback that's going in there with a little bit of gravitas, but also coming off probably his worst performance as an Iowa quarterback in Cade McNamara. This has to be the game, right, that he takes that next step. And obviously he's shown before he can win over there. It's just a matter of doing it.
Yeah. I think this is really an important game for him. And I'm not saying win or lose. I'm just saying perform well, because that's a good team they're playing, and it's on a road and tough environment. And you can't just walk in and expect to beat Penn State over there. I mean, you've got to play your best football. But I think what you want to see is from Cade McNamara is, give us a reason why this guy is earned the benefit of doubt, because he has the benefit of the doubt because he played with Michigan and they went to a championship game and he had good statistics. But it's like, was it you or was it everybody else around you? And I think so far we've given him the benefit of the doubt because of his injury and because of his background. And now this is why they brought you here. And I'm not saying he can't do it. Obviously, I think he can. It's just, now go out and be that leader. Go out and make plays, move the ball on 3rd down, and hit a big pass and keep Iowa in this game. Iowa needs a good quarterback on Saturday, and he's the type of guy that I think that needs to come through. And if you can do that, even if the result isn't what you want, then I think it validates going out and getting him in the transfer portal, signing him to a free agent contract, and that he is your undisputed leader. I think then it validates it. But if it doesn't, if it's a shaky game, then the questions are going to come hot and heavy over the next few weeks.
Yeah. What is it? A 2-year deal with a player option for the second year? Is that pretty much what it is?
Like a baseball contract. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I kind of harped on this in our Hawk Central show last night, but I feel like it's just he's got to avoid the negative plays. Took way too many of those against Western Michigan. You can't take a 12-yard sack when you're in field goal range in Happy Valley. And I field goal range for Iowa with Drew Stevens is 36 yards line in, something like that. He can hit from 54 pretty comfortably, at least distance-wise. Obviously, he missed one the other day, but if you gave me 4 Drew Stevens field goals from 54, I bet he makes 3 of them. So you can't do that, and you can't throw, you can't miss touchdown passes by throwing a pick either at the end of the half and causing your coordinator to throw his headset. So,
right. You look at the Iowa State game too. You missed some long passes that were big plays. And again, we understand with the quad strain or the quad tear, I think it's more of a tear at this point more than a strain, that he's going to be limited, and the offense has been limited. They have not run. I mean, they want one bootleg, no rollouts. Just, they've really confined him, a lot more shotgun than they probably normally would run. That's all understandable, but make the makeables, and the makeables are big plays, and the makeables are really important in this game because your opportunities against Western Michigan. Okay, you can throw an end zone interception in the end of the first half against Western Michigan and still come out and play. Your team's going to win decisively. You can't give up those opportunities on the road in an environment like that against a team like that in Penn State. So this is Cade McNamara's game. I think it's more his game than it is, say, Brian Ferentz's game. I think this is on the quarterback, not the coordinator.
Want to remind folks that Circa Sports is the exclusive sports betting app of Iowa Everywhere. Circa Sports is sports betting the way it should be, with the highest limits, lowest holds, and the best odds. Download the app today at the App Store or circasports.com. Circa lists Iowa this morning. The line has moved a little bit more. Iowa plus 15 in Happy Valley with the over-under of 40. So they're basically telling you maybe a 27-13 type of score. So we'll see. That tells you there's a lot of ground to cover here, and Iowa's got to play a pretty perfect game, which leads us, Scott, to our main topic of today's show. What does a realistic path to an improbable victory, maybe a little bit like 2009, what does a realistic path look like for Iowa on Saturday?
Well, I think there are several different game plans that need to all work together in concert, and complementary football play a part of that. And number one is I still think Iowa's philosophy on defense is the best philosophy to go against this Penn State team, which is 2 gap up front, stop the run. They have 2 NFL caliber running backs, although I've seen better ones out of Penn State before with Barkley and Sanders when they were a combo, but Singleton and Allen are really good. So you got to be careful there. But stop the run, slow it down. 2 is play your zone defense, eyes on the ball, eyes on the quarterback. And I think they've got good receivers. I'm not saying great receivers. The one concern I have on defense thus far that plays into this game is, can they get after Drew Aller? Can they rush him? Can they discomfort him, let alone get to him and sack him? Chad, I'm not sure. That's the one question. That's the one issue with the defense right now that I'm probably disappointed in. And to me, if they can somehow disrupt him, stop the run, force him to drive down the field, no big plays, then I think Iowa puts itself in a position to be very competitive in this game.
Yeah, I think we've realized, at least through 3 weeks, there's no Van Ness on this roster, and that is hurting this team. I mean, that was a guy that could get some pressure from anywhere. I mean, heck, he had 9 quarterback hits or hurries, right, against Rutgers in week 4 last year, same week, from inside and outside, and they're just not getting that pressure. 3 sacks this year and 3 turnovers as a defense. So this has not been a typical Phil Parker defense in that sense. And again, to circle back to the 09 theme, you had Christian Ballard, Adrian Claiborne, Carl Klug. I mean, Broderick Benz was probably the 4th guy there. And Mike Daniels was somewhere on the bench, right, in that game. So you got like NFL dudes up front, and we're just not yet seeing that. Noah Shannon's loss, I think, is bigger than we maybe realized. I'd like to see Deontay Craig maybe take that next step. I kind of thought he was going to be the next guy. Hasn't come to fruition yet. Joe Evans has had a nice year, probably about what you would expect.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, he's been really good, playing more of an every down role. I feel like Ethan Hurkett's been not bad, but let's see. Let's see Logan Lee. Let's see Y.A. Black. Let's see Eric Graves. Let's see those guys make a difference. I mean, Graves really hasn't. I criticize him. He's a true sophomore, but hasn't made that difference just yet. So, what do you think of Penn State's offensive line? I feel like, does Iowa have an opportunity here? I feel like it's been okay so far. I thought it was going to be like the best of the Franklin era. Not sure it is yet. What do you think?
The tackle is probably the best of the left tackle, Olu Fashanu. I struggle pronouncing his name. My apologies. He's a top 10 pick. in the next draft. And so I think he's a guy that they're going to have to be careful with in some ways. I mean, but I think the rest of the line is there's opportunity there.
Yeah, that's what I think too. I agree.
And I do think that you're right, that if the defensive tackles could make more of an impact, whether it's TFLs, whether it's stopping, they're gonna be required to stop the run, Y.A. Black and Aaron Graves and Logan Lee, but disrupt the passing game when applicable. To me, I think that's really going to be the hallmark here. And I do think that they're capable of that, because when you start to look across the board at their offense, and it's easy to get caught up in this trap of they're so good, they're Penn State. There's no KJ Hamler here. There's no Jahan Dotson. There's no Chris Godwin. I've seen them, Parker Washington. There's no Freiermuth or Gesicki. Theo Johnson should be on the other team, and he'd be better. I'll be honest. I think he'd be a better tight end if he was at Iowa than he was at Penn State. Drew Aller can be the best quarterback that they've had since Kerry Collins, but he's also not there yet. And he was 16 of 33 at Illinois. And now he's got a zone defense that's capable of really disrupting him. But so to me, it comes down to, yes, controlling the line of scrimmage. That's what happened in the 09 game. That's what can happen here. And again, disrupt the passer. If you could stop the run and disrupt the passer, this defense is well set to have a very, very good day.
Yeah. Control the run, stop the run. I think one stat that gives me some encouragement from Iowa is that Penn State does not have a rush over 21 yards this year, which kind of surprises me. It leads me to believe they're not getting monster holes at the point of attack because they've got really good running backs. They haven't played world beaters yet. Illinois' defense actually has taken a huge step back, it seems. So that's. I have no doubt that's a priority this week. Make Drew Aller throw the ball 38 times and take your chances. I feel like Cooper DeJean is due for something. I feel like Penn State has enough, ego maybe to throw at him and try to beat him with their guys. And I still think Xavier Wampa, you've got to have dudes in this game. That's a dude with some talent, some 5-star talent. Maybe he makes a play. Let's flip it to the other side of the ball, Scott. What's the path to scoring points? And we talked about one other little wrinkle of a stat is Penn State has scored 30-plus points in 11 straight games, which is, I think it's 11 straight, or maybe it's 10 straight. But it's whatever it is, it's the highest, longest streak in FBS. So, I feel pretty confident Iowa can hold them under 30, but you almost, based on what Vegas is telling you, you got to hold them to about half that if you want to win this game. I don't think you want to try to win this game 23-20 again. So, how does Iowa get to, let's say 20 points? And I think that's probably at least you got to have at least that much to win, probably.
Yeah.
How do they do it?
I don't know. This is the question mark. And because you're facing an elite defense, you're facing the best, not only that they're going to play, but one of the best, if not the best in the country, because they have dudes at all three levels. And Penn State in the past has always had great linebackers. We know they've always had a couple of stud defensive linemen, and more often than not, guys in the secondary. And now they don't have guys; they have dudes. And so now it puts a lot of pressure on Iowa in multiple ways. And I think number one, you obviously have to run the football. If you don't, you're dead. But you've also got to protect your quarterback, and that's the edge that you've got to be careful with, because with both Isaac and Robinson, they are NFL defensive ends. And I think Mason Richmond has played really well, especially in pass protection, but that's where Jennings Dunker has struggled. So you got to be cognizant of that and be careful there. And so the pathway to me is making sure that Cade McNamara has enough decent time. And I think it might be a quick game type of passing attack where you're going to have to get your receivers involved. And against that secondary, that's going to be challenging. Kalen King is as good as it gets at cornerback. So he might take away just about any pass coming in his direction. So, Eric All, you're going to have some crossing routes. You're going to have to protect against the blitz. Abdul Carter is a great player. So they're going to have to take advantage of every single opportunity that comes its way. And I'm not so sure that they can get more than, I don't know, 3 scoring drives, opportunities. They may create some on defense and special teams, but they're going to have to take advantage of it. Chad, this is a good defense. And so they're going to have to maximize every single opportunity because they're not going to come very often.
Yeah, and to circle it back to 2009 again, I know I'm sounding like Kirk Ferentz here, back in 2009. But Iowa didn't score an offensive touchdown until very late in that game, the Robinson score that you referenced. So it may be, one of those games where you just got to chip and take your field goals. Maybe get a safety in there somewhere. Probably, right? You got to have safety in an Iowa-Penn State game somewhere. But I kind of, first of all, I'm with you. I mean, I think passing is going to be difficult, especially without Luke Lachey. That's such a big injury. That's a big injury long term, but especially this game, it is a huge injury because you got to have dudes in this game, just like you said. And he is a dude. He's a guy that could have been a difference maker, kind of like a Laporta would have been in this game. So that hurts a lot. And so I think you've got to kind of. I liked what they did in the run last week. The running game has to just make some creases, make some headway. There were no negative runs by the running backs last week, which I thought was really encouraging. And that was an attacking Western Michigan defense. So the only negative runs were sacks with McNamara. So that's a positive. Build on that. I felt like it was huge that the offensive line just had a confidence building day. And it sure sounded like a confident team when we talked to him the other day. Leishon Williams, very confident, and I feel like he's going to be 25 carry guy maybe on Saturday. I think that's probably the recipe, right? We saw Mekhi Sargent have a pretty big game over there in 18. Didn't win the game, but he kind of reminds me of him a little bit too. I don't know. That's the path I see is run as much as you possibly can and be okay with punting. You just cannot take these negative plays. I feel like you can turn field position a little by little, maybe in this game.
Yeah, and I know this runs contrary to the public demand, but there's no sin in punting. I mean, you accept it, you just move on, and you play field position because Iowa has been built, and people don't want to respect this, but it has been built defensive first. That that it's complementary football, but it lives on defense. Defense is the reason why it has success, and I think that's what you've got to do. You got to maximize your opportunities, but don't do anything stupid. And I think the margin for error is very, very small here. And that is like last week, Cade McNamara could throw an end zone interception, right before the halftime and get the offensive coordinator all riled up, but that's not a killer. This week, it would be a killer. Leishon Williams, this is your game. You compared to Mekhi. I think that's a great comparison. He reminds me a lot of Adam Robinson, just really low to the ground, physical, good movement, maybe not overly fast, but good lateral quickness. And you're going to have to put a lot into him because no Jazz Patterson, no Caleb Johnson. Those are really important losses as well. And, my concern for this team and a lot of Lachey, you can't replace. He's the best offensive player they had. And after watching these tight ends for so many years, Chad, nobody's played better to start a season than Luke Lachey. And that's really sad and a shame. But Eric All, come on down. This is why you came here. And you got to start making some of the blocks you've been missing that would have sprung some ball carriers. I think that's really got to happen. I think what I'm anxious to see is 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7, and you got to give Leishon Williams a blow, but you're not going to run a route with a running back. Will we see Max White in there blocking? I think we probably will because there's probably a little more trust there. No offense to Kamari Moulton, who ran the ball really well, or TJ Washington, who did the same. But you get, it's not about that. It's about winning. And will you see that, or even a tight end take that role? So it's going to be a really it's going to be a very physical chess match. And as long as they keep their heads about them, even if they fall down 10-0 with a 79-yard pass and a 20-play drive, if they can just continue to keep their heads and their wits about them, don't do anything stupid. Although, Stanzi threw some interceptions that game too.
Yeah, right.
Then they
Rick Six.
If they, yeah, exactly. He was 5, I think, in his career. But if he can, if the team can just keep themselves in the game in the fourth quarter, they'll have a chance. They'll have a chance. But you cannot allow the surroundings and your mistakes dictate the outcome of the game.
Yeah. So if you, to me, if you're watching the game, there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be downs. I can almost guarantee it. There's probably going to be downs in the first quarter. The goal here for Iowa is to get to the fourth quarter with a chance. That's exactly what happened in 2009. You're down 10-5 in the fourth, and boom, you turn the game around. We've seen that time and time again in the Ferentz era. Heck, even in 2021, they're down in the fourth quarter until Spencer Petras hits Nico Ragaini with one of the best play calls of the Brian Ferentz era. You had good field position too, and you struck. So set up by, I think it was just a short punt, right? So, yeah, it's a long game. Just like the 2009 game taught you, it's going to be, you might give up a big play early. You might throw a pick early. I mean, heck, Stanzi throws a pick off Colin Sandeman's between the 2 and the 2, bounces in the air. He kicks it up. And the hero back, I guess, safety for Penn State slid in there and makes a pick. So it's going to be interesting. Turnovers are absolutely going to be a key, though. This is a Penn State defense. I was rewatching the Illinois game from the other day. Illinois committed 3 turnovers in the first quarter alone against this defense. So it's not going to be easy to play turnover free, but I think that's really maybe about the only path Iowa has to, getting 16, 19, 20 points to have a shot to win this game. I picked Iowa to lose 27-10, but that's just because I don't believe – I need to see them, not commit these turnovers, not make catastrophic mistakes with the sacks. It all comes back to Cade. It all comes back to ball protection and classic Ferentz staples. So we'll see where this team is. How do you kind of see this one unfolding, Scott?
I have them losing by a touchdown to like 23-16. I think I have them scoring a touchdown and having, some field goals. And I think Penn State's a better team. And, but I think in the big picture, Chad, and this is going to be the thing that's going to be the most difficult for Iowa fans to accept because it's just such a rash topic, is that's okay. You can, this team's not going to win the national title. I hate to break it to everybody, but they're not. But they can win the Big Ten title. And this game is very, very important for Penn State because they still have Michigan and Ohio State to play. They still have Maryland, which is a pretty good team. They could put themselves really in bad shape and force them to have to win out to get to Indy. Iowa could lose this game and then go run its schedule, which it is capable of doing, and get better because I like the trajectory of this program. I think I can see the strides on offense. I can see the changes. People don't want to give Brian Ferentz any respect. I see what he's doing, and I like it. I think it really is going to work. They just have to execute it. And I don't want to sound like a coach, but that's the way it really, truly is. The passes were there. The quarterback didn't hit them, in the last 2 games. The runs you see from game 1 to game 3 and the blocking, the execution in the blocking game has been much improved. The runners, you can tell they're downhill guys. And that's why they're going southpaw. They're going with counter and they're going with gap, and it's working. And so if they lose, it doesn't even really matter the score, but if they lose and they just say, okay, we lost, shake it off. Next week, go beat Michigan State, go beat Purdue, and then go to Wisconsin and get a win. They're fine. They're good. They could get better. I know things happen that way. So I hope people keep the big picture perspective in mind. But I know I'm asking a lot because there's going to be people fire Brian, on Twitter if they only score 1 touchdown. But this is a defense this is an elite defense, man. This is a good defense.
Exactly, which is, again, why reiterating the point, it's not necessarily a bad thing to punt the ball. You can you can push Penn State back 55 yards by just throwing your punter out there, and maybe you stop them 3 and out and get the ball back 15 yards closer or 20 with Cooper DeJean. So I know it's very boring, very simple, very Hawkeye-ish, but that's ultimately, to me, the path to victory is field position, running, defense, no turnovers, classic Ferentz football. And I feel like what you just said, Scott, about this is a 12-game season. Get to the Big Ten championship game is the goal here.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see. I want to see him hang. I want to see him be competitive, win or lose. I want to see the quarterback take a step because I think there's opportunity. Yeah, you get 2 home games after this before the Wisconsin game. And Penn State, man, they are just going to put everything into this. Their next games are at Northwestern, then a bye week, then hosting UMass. So they have 0 look ahead situation here. In fact, this is the game they've been looking to for the first 3 weeks. So this is it. You're going to get their absolute best shot for sure. It's a difficult situation for the Hawkeyes. I'm curious to see how they hold up.
It's a whiteout. They've got CBS. It's a night game. This is the game they've circled, at least in the front half of the schedule, until they start playing Ohio State and Michigan. So everything is on this game, and it's understandable for them. But I think if there's one thing you want to see most of all is, if you're Iowa, you want to see Penn State earn it. You cannot allow a bad pass. If they intercept a pass, you want it to because they were in the best position and they made the play to intercept the ball. Or if you fumble, it's because Abdul Carter just came and smacked you, you don't want to, or somebody beat you off the edge because they just had a better move or they're more physical. That's what you want to see. And that's what's going to happen at times, but you don't want to see, the quarterback throw the ball behind the receiver. You don't want to see anything like that. You want them to make those plays. They're very capable of doing it, but you don't want to say, man, I made a bad pass. You want to say they made a really good play, tip their cap to them, and then move on.
A couple big games in the Big Ten this week, as far as I see it. Friday night be fun. When we touch down in Pennsylvania, can watch Wisconsin at Purdue. That's an interesting one. I think probably if you're a Hawkeye fan, I guess you want Purdue to take them down, right? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if it matters. You still got to beat all these guys anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to see what I still don't really know what Wisconsin is. They didn't look that great against Georgia Southern, to be honest.
No, they were down at one point. Like 14-7.
Yeah,
and it was just, this is a work in progress there. And I think that was my big fear with Wisconsin all along, why I thought they were the biggest wild card. They could take that step up and become a much better program, or they could take a big step down because, listen, this is how they are built, and they are going away from that. When you have a 240-pound sledgehammer running back and you're not using him effectively in Braylon Allen, for what? Do you have the quarterback who can do it? Do you have the receivers who can do it? I don't know. And so I think this is going to be a really good matchup for them. They lost it at Wazoo. They didn't play very well really this week, or even against Buffalo, who's terrible. But I think seeing how they compete at Purdue will give us some measure of, is this team really going to turn the corner and become a competitive West Division team, or is it just going to be barely hanging on and be the next Nebraska?
Yeah, and it's 2 teams the Hawkeyes play coming up very, very soon. So definitely worth tuning in. I think it's a 6:00 Central game on Fox Sports 1. And the other biggie, Scott, which relates to the Big Ten, doesn't relate to the Big Ten standings, but it does relate to if a Big Ten team can get into the playoff, is Ohio State at Notre Dame. I mean, if you lose that game as a non-conference, I think that gives you a hit. The Pac-12 looks really good this year.
Yeah.
The ACC definitely could. I mean, Florida State could easily, I'm not going to say easily, but they could run the table and get into the playoff. Heck, Big 12. I mean, Texas right now looks pretty good. I mean, the spots for this 14 playoff are going to be pretty limited. So I feel like Ohio State's got to win this game. I almost feel like this is odd to think about, but I almost feel like they're in a similar position to Iowa a little bit, in the fact that everyone's sort of not I mean, the line has come down a lot. Notre Dame's the cool pick this week. Ohio State's got something to prove, I guess. I should maybe it's not totally similar, but I feel like it's rare that Ohio State gets to play the no respect card, and I feel like people think they might go down this week, and they need to win this. I think for the Big Ten's sake, it would be really good if they could win this, especially if you want to dream, and say, hey, an 11-1 Iowa faces a 12-0 Ohio State in the Big Ten title game. If we win, we're in. I don't know. I'm just thinking big picture for the Big Ten here.
Well, this is going to be a tough game because, Notre Dame is a good team too. And this is in South Bend, and, there's the legendary feats that have taken place at Notre Dame Stadium. I think this is going to be this is a proven game for Kyle McCord. They've got the two best receivers in the country, and I'm not so certain that if they were in the NFL right now, they wouldn't be going to the Pro Bowl, especially Marvin Harrison. They've got athletes, but they lost a ton. They really did to the NFL. So they're still kind of feeling themselves. They played well last week. They scored a lot of points against Western Kentucky, but they've got a lot to show, and it's a young season for them as well. But this is a prove-it game for them, and it's kind of a litmus test for the Big Ten, because you lose a game like this, it does matter in perception, and college football perception really matters. So I think that's really impactful. And then one other game I'm kind of going to watch, Chad, is Minnesota at Northwestern. Minnesota, and Minnesota's like a 12-point favorite, and they should win, you'd think, but. This is a weird game and a weird time. It's a night game at Evanston, and Minnesota hasn't played real well across the board. They got blown out last week. So I want to see how they kind of come back. Northwestern, the same deal. And I'm not overly concerned that either team's going to be challenging for the Big Ten West, but I think it is a West Division game, and my eyes kind of naturally gravitate to that type of game.
Yeah, Minnesota can move to 2-0 in the Big Ten and 2-0 against the West if they win that one. So that's something worth watching for sure. Safe travel, Scott. Your story is going online tomorrow, correct? Anything else you want to point our listeners to with your coverage at The Athletic?
Yeah, I ended up we did our beat writer breakdown, me and Audrey Snyder, who covers Penn State for us.
Yeah. She's
today, great. And I really should have done it for tomorrow instead. But anyway, So my story on 2009 goes tomorrow. So if you want to relive it in a different way, and
yeah, man,
and now
I'll read it.
I'm afraid to read yours first, because in case there's like, oh my God, it's the same. But so no, I look forward to reading yours as well. It was a signature game and a signature moment in that season, that era, and really the Kirk Ferentz era.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Scott, and thank you, listeners, for your support and interest in Legends and Listeners. We're now 6 episodes in to our journey here, and we appreciate you guys and gals listening. We'll join you next Thursday at 11 a.m. from the Channel Seed Studios as we get 7 Nation Army out of our heads and look ahead to Iowa versus Michigan State. For Scott Dochterman, this is Chad Leistikow. Enjoy the game. Enjoy the CBS college football theme music. And just like in 2009, don't panic. Settle in. Enjoy the 3.5-hour show on Saturday night. And we'll talk to you next week here on Iowa Everywhere.